Okay, well, welcome viewers. Here in sunny Cornwall, in the southwest of England, we've got over 30 male voice choirs, a great tradition. But COVID, of course, has hit us all. And tonight we brought together three musical directors from three of those choirs to talk through what they and their choirs have been doing since March. So to start with, they're each going to introduce themselves and a tiny bit about themselves and their choirs. And we're going to start with Marcus.
Thanks, John. My name's Marcus Allain, and I'm fortunate enough to look after the Boys in Blue, also known as Laveni Male Voice Choir, and we're more East Cornwall. We've got about 45 members currently on the books, and I've been with the choir for 4 years. They were my first introduction into male voice singing, having spent 12 years working with mixed voices and ladies choirs, and it's been a real eye-opener for me in terms of looking into that avenue of a new genre of music, and thoroughly enjoyable.
Thank you, Marcus. Russell?
I'm Russell Pascoe. I've worked with male voice choirs most of my life. When I was a child in Helston, we used to have visiting male voice choirs from Wales and that, so I've always been interested. I took on City of Truro Male Choir as their conductor around 5 years ago, and I suppose we have around 50 guys in the choir.
Stephen?
Oh, hi, I'm Steve Roy. I conduct Mousehole Male Voice Choir. I have done since 2004, and before that, I suppose I had the extra benefit of knowing what it's like from the other side, because I did sing in the choir at Newlyn for 24 years before that. So I've been involved in male voice since 1980. They're in Mousehole. There are now just over 80 guys singing, and we have a lovely time together.
Thank you, Stephen. I just add, Stephen has been one of the conductors at the Albert Hall when the Thousand Voices from Cornwall go up there. Now, let's start now just looking at, in fact, how each choir faced lockdown, which started on March the 23rd, and how you decided what you were going to do and how you brought your choir along with you. Marcus.
So I'm fortunate enough to work with a number of organisations outside of any male voice choir as a full-time musician. So it was really important for me to very quickly take the entire business online, as to kind of secure that income stream predominantly, but also to make sure that we didn't risk a lot of membership or the losing out on the joy that we get from singing as choristers. So we were fortunate enough that we went into lockdown, I believe it was a Thursday, so we cancelled that initial rehearsal because that Thursday is our practice night. But by the following Thursday, we were up ready to go on to our first Zoom session. So we were using the online videoing platform Zoom. And I guess one of the biggest challenges we faced was trying to engage the choristers in using the technology, because historically within the choir, our technology use went as far as generating CDs for them to use in their cars or at home to listen to rehearsal tracks, occasionally maybe downloading some rehearsal files from the website and other online storage spaces. So we were kind of used to that level of technology, but trying to get 45 mature singers to engage with a new technology and to go onto a website and download a new program and then set up an account and remember their passwords and all that jazz was a bit challenging. So we were able to bring together some of the more technically minded members of the choir to facilitate that process, to ring around, to jump online and talk them through step by step on how to do that. We sent out an email breakdown of every single step that you would need to turn on computer, type in password, log in. It was really kind of Zoom for dummies, as it were, if there was to be a book, which managed to get the majority of our singers online in that first instance. So it was a bit of a process, but we managed it relatively unscathed.
Great. Thanks for that. Russell?
Well, I think a bit like Marcus, we in Truro got going pretty quickly with a few kind of full starts. But there were YouTube videos that we could watch of conductors saying how they'd managed to do their rehearsals on this thing called Zoom, which I have to say I'd never heard of before, and now it's part of so many of our lives. So we moved quite quickly onto the Zoom, I would say. But there is this thing about the delay, and that caused a few problems at the beginning. We had some meetings and some dry runs before we actually got the gentleman to join us all in a rehearsal. And to start off with, I remember in the sunshine sitting out in the garden conducting all the music onto my phone so that then the pianist could follow my beat. And it very soon we realized that that was a bit of a waste of time. And so I then started making soundtracks, but I expect I'll talk about that later on. But I must say that from a choir point of view, moving on to Zoom was a fantastic thing to do. It's kept us all together. It's kept us as a community. And means that we can care for each other, which I think is jolly important when you run a choir.
Thank you, Russell. Stephen, how was it for you?
It was a bit strange for me, I must say, because I'm a bit of a technophobe, and one of the guys in the choir who's very adept and uses technology in his work constantly said to me we ought to be doing this within a couple of weeks of the lockdown, I suppose it must have been, and said we ought to consider doing this. So I, like as Russell just said, I looked up on a chap talking about it on the on YouTube and followed along what he was saying, and I thought, well, it's got to be possible. My assistant MD is Dave, is always very good. He does backing tracks, as Marcus said, learning CDs for the choir each year. And as time goes on, I hear them talking about, well, everyone doesn't need a CD because some of them can use a Dropbox and all this. And I've never done, although I've never done it myself, I know that a lot of the guys in the choir understand it. So, but at least because of that, we did have most things on backing tracks already. And then we went down the route of the fact that I could work with Dave and we co-host the meetings, and Dave works the backing tracks and I do the talking and I sing the parts through with the guys in between. So it was a bit of an eye-opener for me at first, I must admit, but it's something that I've taken to, if you like, and you just end up. Well, I was going to say, one of the things I think is a great thing for the membership is the fact that they see each other every week, and I think it's such a great mental health benefit to that, and the fact that it cheers everybody up to see everybody else who's on there. And I'm not that everyone's gone on there, because some people say, oh, it's not for me. I think we've probably only got 2 people in the choir though that you can't reach by email, so most people are on, got that if nothing else. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock at first, but we've got used to it as we've gone along, no problem.
Lovely, thanks. As musical directors, I'd just like you to talk about what were the most difficult things for you at the beginning, and how did you change what you did as you went along? Marcus, how about you?
So yeah, just touching on what Russell alluded to earlier in terms of the actual trying to sing together simultaneously on a Zoom session is impossible. And we very quickly learned that it wasn't a viable option to do so. So I guess the first challenge was trying to think a little bit more outside the box and in terms of how can we make this experience as close to the normal as possible in terms of going to a rehearsal and leaving feeling uplifted and feeling like you've had a good catch up with Billy from the second basses and that camaraderie that we so heavily depend on within the male voice choir world. And we as a choir started out having a bit more of a social sing. So we would find some of our favorite performances that were either on YouTube or that we had audio recordings of, and we would share them through the Zoom platform, and we would sing along. Then we'd have 15-20 minutes of a bit of a chat and a bit of a catch up and a bit of a check-in, reminding Billy from the second bases that he needs to unmute before he speaks, and that's kind of how it went for the first couple of weeks. It was during the 8 o'clock applauses for the NHS as well for that first chunk. So it was really nice that as a choir, actually, we could share that together, even though we might have been in different parts of the county. We were all in the same Zoom session, and we were able to partake in that appreciation at the same time each week as part of our rehearsal process. But soon after that, we could see that the numbers were starting to dip, and people were actually missing the engagement of the actual tuition that they receive at a choir practice. So we then looked into sectional work, and we started breakout rooms within Zoom, and just having scheduled timings. So I'd have the tenors for half an hour, and then the basses for half an hour on a Thursday evening. So they could still get that one-to-one engagement with me in terms of note bashing at a piano, going through the tricky passages and phrases, but then also singing along to some pre-recorded rehearsal tracks as well. And we've seen the numbers pick up again there, because it was about getting that balance right between the social aspect that we have at a choir practice, but also the technical teaching aspect and element of learning. So they were kind of two of the biggest challenges that we had.
Great, that's really interesting. Thank you, Russell. How was it for you?
Well, I think I've been in a very, very lucky position, because I've got a deputy musical director, John, and I've also got the pianist and a very talented youngster who's the Royal Northern School of Music, who has been in the choir anyhow. He's just gone off to university. So there are 4 people who are capable, more than capable, of taking sectionals. And so the way that we've done it is we'll have our warm-ups, we have a chat first, then we do some warm-ups, and then we'll just go into specific warm-up breakout rooms, tenor, baritone and bass. I take the basses, and then after say 20 minutes of learning new stuff and refreshing our individual lines, we go into pairs. So the 2 tenors will go into a room, and the basses and the baritones will go into the room for another 20 minutes, and then everyone will come back into a room together, and we will all sing really the work that we've just worked on and sing together. I've made, because my other job is as a composer, so I thought it would be interesting to just rescore just about everything in our repertoire. So I've made, if it's a piece of music that I think would sound nice with an orchestra in the background, I've written an arrangement for orchestra. If I think it would be a string orchestra and harp, I've done that. If I think it would be gamelan, I've done that. And I've just done Christmas carols using the medieval sounds of sackbuts and recorders to try and get a feel. And I think that kind of, for me at any rate, making the music relevant as a sound world has been a completely new thing for us as a choir, and I think we've actually rather enjoyed that. One of the things I've learned is try not to do everything yourself. There are other people who can do things, and just let them get on with it.
I look forward to hearing Male Voice Choir and gamelan very, very soon, Russell.
Yeah, to be just to add, because I'm in Russell's choir. One of the lessons we've all learned is about muting and unmuting ourselves. But the other thing is 2 of us with slightly more IT always act as the host on each evening, yep, which leaves our musical team at least free to concentrate on the music and what they're doing. But that's us. Stephen, how's it been, and how have you changed things as you've gone along?
I'll be honest, I don't know that we've changed it all that much, because I was quite happy with the way we started out, which was doing, perhaps we just started learning at the beginning of the year, quite a few new pieces, and we carried on learning them and slipping in some from previous years that the guys already had the music for. And we did that from the start. I think the thing that because as I said before, Dave, my assistant MD, he co-hosts with me and plays the backing tracks. But one of the things I think the guys have really enjoyed as we've gone on is where we've had a recording of something with the choir singing it, or even if it was another choir on YouTube singing the same arrangement, we could actually sing along to voices rather than just the piano backing sound. Because I think one of the issues with working with the choir and with most male voice choirs is that lots of the guys don't read music. So when you start and do a whole piece all the way through with the backing track, you've got, say, 8 pages, 12 pages, whatever. You just hope that everybody gets to the last page at the same time, because as Marcus said, the coordination isn't there to be able to conduct, because they're seeing you after they've heard it from where and whatever. So it takes a bit of doing to get with the music. But if what I was doing where there was a gap, say, of 3 or 4 bars accompaniment before they came in again, I would just say, make sure we're on page 6 now, or just something casual like that, without trying to say that someone doesn't know where they are, but just to make sure that everyone was in the same. Because obviously some people were doing the Zoom practices who would only just joined the choir, and so they haven't really they'd hardly gained any experience of being in the choir. Now suddenly they're in their own front room trying to sing along to a computer. So it's quite a stretch really for people that haven't had the experience. But really, I think the major thing that helped the guys to really to enjoy it even more than they already were was the singing along to recordings, as well as just the backing track, so a bit of each kind of thing.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Stephen, I'm going to come back to you again because you've always been the third in the row. Just my next question is really, because I know each choir, having conquered, if you like, Zoom practices, did you do anything else with your choir?
Anything else outside of the Zoom practices?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no. I mean, the only time we've, I can't say we met because officially we didn't, but was one of our gentlemen died right near the beginning of the lockdown. Nothing to do with a member of the choir, one of the elder statesmen, if you like, and a much loved member of the community at Mousehole. And we did all go over what would have been his 90th birthday. They switched the Mousehole Harbour Lights have got a beautiful Celtic cross on Mousehole Island, and they switched that on the evening of his 90th birthday. The family came down and whatever, but we were in the rule of 6, so there were only 6 people standing together, and then there was a bit of a gap, and then there might have been some other people that we knew in the distance. But we did actually sing we were spread well around the harbour, and everyone was sensible, but we did actually sing a couple of very nice quiet songs that the family really appreciated. But that's the only thing really that we've done apart from the things that have helped with the Zoom things, which is like we've given out some Christmas music for everyone to enjoy, and we've given out music for next year, so that if we're still in lockdown for a little while longer, we'll have new music to start on next year. So yeah, that's what I would say is that we've done differently.
Yeah, thank you. But you have an annual concert at Paul's.
Oh yeah, yes, I'm with you now. Yeah, I forgot that I'd done that, because there's been even though it's been quiet, there's been a lot going on. Yeah, but that was one of the things that we did was one of the guys who is technically adept came to see me for a few hours, and I learned how to edit tracks off YouTube, and I put together a virtual concert, which the church at Paul, where we sing 3 of our concerts every year at least, we're hoping that we could do something for Paul Feast, and the best we could do was a virtual concert. So I managed to edit 17 tracks, I think, together to make a concert, and then just introduce the pieces to the audience, and then they looked at the pieces on the screen and listened, obviously. But yeah, so that was a virtual concert.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you, Russell. I know, City of Truro and Russell have been doing things. Would you like to tell us about them?
Well, I think City of Truro seem to have really embraced technology since this happened. I know I have too. certain extent. And one of the things I wanted to do, having watched so many choirs like Tenebrae and you know, all the really big professional choirs, the 16, they've been bringing out their videos on YouTube and on Facebook with people singing in booths, as if it were, you know, their repertoire. And I thought it would be nice to do one of these Zoom choir videos, but just think slightly out of the box. So because we've been clapping the NHS each week during our rehearsals at 8 o'clock, we decided to dedicate to the NHS the Frogs Chorus, We All Stand Together. So I wrote an arrangement of that. We all learnt it, and everyone had to record themselves. Now this was a big ask for some of those guys, and it was fantastic what they came back with, and pretty hysterical. I also decided I wanted loads of animals to be sitting in the booth singing along, as it were. And that seemed to go down very well, and the guys enjoyed doing it. So then we decided to do The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and to dress them all up, all the choir members who came down socially distanced into a park, one by one or in pairs, and their costumes, which were a false chest and wig and things, because they all had to look like Tarzan, except some of them who dressed up as lions. And so everything had to be refreshed and made sure that it was hygienic and that. But we filmed everyone singing The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and then posted that on Facebook and on YouTube. And now that seems to be the way that as a choir we are performing. But I don't want us just to do singing into a camera. I want to keep it slightly off the wall. So, because I think it's just fun. My goodness, we're in such a weird time at the moment. We need to have a good laugh. And when it comes to excellence of singing on Zoom, there's only so much you can do. You can't work on balance. You hope that you're getting the notes right. Dynamics, there's only so much you can even think about doing. But on a video, you can just have huge fun. So that's been our way forward during this.
Thank you, Russell. I would just add, because I've been part of the support team supporting Russell through this, is that we were very fortunate in having a couple of guys with us who had a lot of IT knowledge that could weave the videos and the soundtracks together, and that certainly gave us a great advantage in doing it. The other thing was we applied for our second video for a grant from Feast, who are the Cornish arts organisation that assists the arts, and part of getting that funding, we had to try and put our learning that we'd had working through COVID out to the wider world. And indeed, that's what this video is partially all about, because we will be putting this video onto YouTube. But so I just add that as well as backing. Marcus, what's your choir been doing that's different?
So in addition to kind of the Zoom sessions, and in an attempt to try and have our choruses engage a little bit more with the technology, we started creating video resources. So it wasn't just the audio resources that we're so often used to. We're learning a big piece that's completely in Latin at the moment, which is and goes into a number of parts. So we've got, you know, a split choir, more so than we would ordinarily, and the language barrier. And we thought, actually, let's throw in some actual video resources so they can get used to kind of just engaging with that methodology of delivery and teaching. And they were really, really effective. We've had social events. So we've kind of said, right, no singing tonight. We're just going to get in, have a chat, bring some cheese, bring some wine, you know, get a couple of pasties in. And it's been great just to switch off from the worries of the world, have a good old natter, a bit of banter. And what's been great is our accompanist has joined us on those occasions as well. and we've been able to keep her on a retainer, which I think is really important as a working professional musician as well, to just try and make sure we can safeguard them. In addition, has been really important. But we've also done a couple of, as Stephen done, online virtual concerts. So we've actually hosted a Zoom session. We've got all the boys into a Zoom, even those that we hadn't had in previously, and said, "Don't worry, you don't have to sing, you don't have to do it. You've just got to sit and listen." So we had the entire choir and the support team in on the Zoom session, and we kind of went round and we just asked some of the members to share some of their musical journey, how long they've been with Laveni. Some of them, it's been almost 50 years, and things that they might do outside choir to keep themselves occupied. But we also took some pre-recorded footage from the archives, so some old videos, some old audio, some of the first early recordings that Laveni did on vinyl and cassette and things like that, and managed to get them into a digital format. We also reached out to some of the soloists that we'd been fortunate enough to work with over the last few years and get them to record personal messages and solo performances that we could also put into this live performance. And it was a great opportunity for us to highlight our nominated charity for the year, which we're continuing to support, which is Penhaligon's Friends. And because of COVID, it kind of stifled our fundraising efforts. So we managed to attach a fundraising link through that live performance. So we were still able to support local charities, which is really important for Laveni. So those sorts of concerts have been really enjoyable. And I think it's important as well for all of us as choirs and leaders to keep our audiences engaged and captivated, because it's hard enough as a musician to live without music, but to live in an environment, or to be in an environment where the arts in general have been really stifled, and knowing full well the effects that music has in terms of generating and creating a positive mental health and physical health and well-being, it was really important we continue to offer something to our audience, our followers, our supporters, our listeners, because they too are going through a pretty tough time in a musically void world at the moment. So a couple of things for us that have just kept us going, really.
That's great, thank you. And it just shows between each of the three different choirs, each choir has done something different, but it's worked for that choir and that musical team. I think I'm coming towards the end now, and I'd like to ask you each one final question, which is really, what is the key advice you would give to the MDs of other choirs who haven't gone down the virtual route yet? What advice would you give to them? Marcus?
Oh gosh, where do you start? I think firstly, on Zoom, it doesn't matter what you wear on your bottoms, as long as, I'm wearing my pajama bottoms right now and no one would know, so there's one thing for you. But on a serious note, taking choirs online, having this virtual approach can be as much or as little as you need or want it to be. It can be a case of just getting everyone in the same room at the same time to say hello, as Stephen was saying earlier. Just being able to see each other for some choirs will be enough to keep them going. Male voice choirs, I think, specifically, could well be in a really precarious position when we come out of lockdown. So I think we need to do everything we can within our power to just try and keep that ball rolling and momentum, so we don't lose the hundreds of years of heritage and culture that we've worked really hard to create and sustain. So my advice would be, give it a go. Reach out to fellow MDs that are already doing it. Get on YouTube, and just have a go. Just have a go. It might work, it might not, but we should at least be trying.
Marcus, thank you. Russell?
I agree with everything that Marcus has said. I mean, we're doing this video to encourage people. If anyone needs any help and support, the three of us, I know, will be there to help. And we know I know people who are much more experienced now in this than I am, that I can call in a way, a lot of us have used technology without really realizing it, like Dropbox. When we've had new pieces in our repertoire, we've put the lines to be learnt on Dropbox so that the members can access them and practice at home. And I'm hoping, as new people seem to be joining the choir, that they are thinking in a technological way that I didn't think in until recently, and are using that Dropbox as a natural thing that goes along with the Zoom rehearsals. I think some of the older guys in the choir probably won't be doing it that way. But it is a challenge. But actually, as I've found, it can be really quite rewarding. So I would say embrace it, and realize that within a choir, you've got a lot of guys there who actually know a lot more than you do about how to run this part of a rehearsal. So just get them involved and they'll enjoy helping as well.
Thank you, Russell. Stephen, what advice would you give?
I didn't endorse what Marcus and Russell have said, but and it's don't be afraid of it, really, because as I said earlier, I don't really know anything about computers, and I don't pretend that I do now, even after doing rehearsals for months on Zoom. I don't know very much, but I can do that, and it's no problem. But people in the choir who, as long as they're on the internet, they can be part of something wonderful by just seeing each other week by week or whenever they decide to do it. But it just keep your members in communication with one another is such a mental health benefit, as we said earlier, as well as the musical benefit. I mean, the guys that I've had on the Zoom practices have learnt all this year's new music. We're even learning 3 new pieces for the Christmas repertoire, which we won't sing publicly till next year, but at least we're doing something new and we're doing something positive. But I think what I would say is don't think that your choir members need to be afraid, because all you need to do is send an email with a link, and they only have to click on that link, which is blue or whatever, and they're in on the Zoom rehearsal. So there really is nothing to fear in doing this, as long as we said, you've got someone who knows what they're doing to set it up. And if the musical director doesn't feel happy taking it, please give it a go, and you will soon take to it, because it really isn't too difficult. Backing tracks are the thing, are an issue, but if you've got recordings of your choir, you can sing along to your own recordings. At least everyone's getting the joy of the singing through what you're doing with them, and the communication is a great thing, because as we said, you don't want to lose communication with people for too long, because will we get them back in the choir at the end of it? We really want to encourage people to carry on singing, to enjoy the community that the choir gives, and to carry on being together for many years to come.
John, it might be worth just mentioning as well that, you know, to do what we're doing isn't expensive. You know, it probably costs me less to run a Zoom session at home than it does for me to drive to St. Neots. So, you know, if people are worrying about, oh, are we going to have to buy all this new fancy technology or equipment? The answer is no. As long as you've got, you know, a computer, even just a phone, you know, you can have the link sent to your phone, and that will suffice. Computers, iPads or tablets, Amazon Kindles, you know, all sorts that will give you access, and there are ways around it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Marcus. Very good point there. So, gentlemen, on behalf of myself and Russell, who have been behind the feast funding to make this thing happen, can I say thank you very much for giving us what you've done, and for what you're doing out there for the male voice choir movement. And let's all hope that we can continue and work through and all get back to singing properly with everyone next year. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.
Sorry, thanks, John.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you.
Okay.